Their journey began in the 13th century when Dominic Guzman, a man of vigorous missionary purpose, saw the moral devastation that false doctrine was working among people he encountered in his travels. A visionary, he saw the need for an educated, mobile band of preachers to counter the evils of false doctrine. In that vision, the Dominican order was born. In the beginning, the women of the order embraced the contemplative ideal, to contemplate and to give to others the fruits of contemplation. Their monastery in Pruy, France, became a way station for rest and spiritual refreshment for the itinerant preachers of the gospel. Foregoing the established forms of religious life, Dominic saw that, in order to respond to the needs of his time, new forms were required. It was a defining moment for the Church's sense of mission, as Dominic's idea of founding an itinerant band of preachers was given approval. From its beginnings, the Dominican order has understood itself as missionary. The Adrian Dominican Sisters trace their origin back to Holy Cross Convent in Regensburg, Germany, a community of cloistered nuns directly descended from Pruy in 1233. In 1853, 4 sisters from that monastery undertook the treacherous journey across the sea to America in response to the need to teach the children of German immigrants. They were sent by Mother Benedicta Bauer, who in the spirit of St. Dominic had said,
"We go, we travel constantly. Our life is a journey, and this world a place of pilgrimage."
They came to an inhospitable New York, but made it their home and the foundation of their teaching ministry in a new world. The nuns of Holy Cross Convent had earlier adjusted rules of the cloister to engage in educating children. The openness to change and accommodation was to be an abiding feature of their ministry. For indeed, our life is a journey, and the world a place of pilgrimage. The sisters first located in Williamsburg, a section of New York City, but then in Amityville, Newburgh, and then westward in Traverse City, Michigan.
Out from the east to Michigan they come apace, with eagerness. Wise, never-wavering women, heedless of stubborn barriers in the road, careless of numbing cold and scanty pilgrim food, finding warmth in comforting the old and nourishment in educating youth.
They tried to maintain elements of their cloistered life, but soon made practical adaptations to meet the demands of their call to education. For our life is a journey.
Wayfaring daughters of Dominic, they wend their buoyant way in trust, gathering strength from common life, garnering wisdom in prayer.
Mother Camilla Madden was first sent to Traverse City, Michigan, and then to Adrian, where she was faced with the task of maintaining a small hospital in a farmhouse surrounded by fields of corn. She soon learned that it had no future, and she turned to her first love, education. St. Joseph Academy was the realization of her dream. Founded with the assistance of local clergy supporters, it grew and thrived.
Born in risk, sustained in hope and hard work, from small beginnings, the Academy grew by leaps and bounds. Sisters and students, together a band of sisters, it preached a message of community and inclusion to be carried afar in Dominican mission.
As its reputation spread, new members came to the congregation by 2 routes, from the surrounding farm areas and from the Mother House in New York. Bishop Samuel Foley of Detroit was not supportive of the new congregation in the cornfield and did not recruit them for schools in the city. As a result, Mother Camilla responded to requests from rural schools and from those that came from other parts of the country, Illinois, Ohio, Florida, New Mexico, the congregation began to lose its provincialism and take on a more cosmopolitan character. Her zeal for education prompted Mother Camilla to pursue the best possible education for her sisters. In Adrian, she established St. Joseph College for that purpose and to provide a continuum of education for the young women graduates of the academy. In 1892, Adrian had become a province of Newburgh, New York, and Mother Camilla the provincial. She was to hold that position until 1923. In that year, Adrian was separated from Newburgh and became an independent congregation. Mother Camilla became the first Mother General of the congregation, although she held that office for only 6 months prior to her death. Mother Augustine Walsh, who succeeded Mother Camilla, continued along the path that Mother Camilla had laid out. As the Catholic population of the country grew, demands for teachers in Catholic schools put great stress upon the congregations of women. Even as the congregation itself was growing, Mother Augustine struggled valiantly to meet the needs for sisters to staff the schools. At the same time the Great Depression descended upon the country, she was faced with financial decisions that drew upon her ingenuity. She was able to direct the congregation through the crises with shrewd management and the able assistance of the general counselors. At her death in 1933, the congregation had grown to 825 members.
Attracted by these pilgrim pioneers, young, vibrant women joined the growing band, afire with zeal for Dominic's way. Hoard not the seed but cast it wide, fanning out to villages and towns, to minister in parishes and schools, sharing gifts of learning and fruits of contemplation with all they serve.
With the coming of Mother Mary Gerald Barry to the role of Mother General, a new wave of enthusiasm rose in the congregation. The times were right for her leadership. She was a courageous and inspired visionary and a dedicated daughter of the Church. She was a builder, both of new institutions and of morale in the congregation. During her tenure of 28 years, she imposed a new rigor in the life of the sisters as she demanded observance of the rule, encouraged deepened prayer and study, and sent them to meet new challenges to ministry. She promoted the preparation of her sisters in institutions of higher education at home and abroad, and built a house of studies at the Catholic University of America, where many sisters could live while pursuing advanced degrees. She built secondary schools for young women in Detroit, Chicago, and Cleveland, established a new college for women in Miami, Florida, expanded to overseas ministry in Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, and the Dominican Republic, ventured into the unknown with 2 hospitals in the West, responded to the call to engage in social work. She embraced the challenge to mentor 2 new congregations into existence, the Glen Mary Sisters at home in the United States and the Dominican Sisters of Our Lady of Remedies in Pampanga, the Philippines. With extraordinary growth and expansion, the congregation attracted hundreds of young and vibrant members.
Running to the rhythms of their own high hopes, daughters of Dominic embrace with zeal the order's dream of praising, blessing, preaching. In growing numbers, they press on in the burgeoning years, longing to carry gospel truths to waiting ears wherever found in the ongoing journey.
As the congregation grew under Mother Gerald, her leadership was recognized by Rome. She was appointed to chair an intercongregational committee to bring a national organization of Mothers General into being. The Conference of Major Superiors of Women was the result. Later, the members changed the name to the Leadership Conference of Women Religious. By the time of Mother Gerald's death in 1961, the members of the congregation had reached approximately 2,400. With her demise, an era in the life journey of the congregation was coming to an end. A new defining moment for the Church and the Order occurred in 1963 when Pope John XXIII called the Church to aggiornamento, renewal. Within his larger view of history, Pope John saw that older forms and outmoded practices were in need of reformation in order to meet the needs of a new time, to an opening of the windows of the Church and letting fresh air in. He recognized that the Church is always in need of reformation, and that the need had to extend to the orders and congregations within the Church as well. A special call to the religious congregations to renew themselves went out after Vatican Council II. Mother Mary Genevieve Weber, successor to Mother Gerald, led the congregation in preparation for the General Chapter of Renewal. Once convened, it lasted for 3 summers and considered over 300 proposals that had been submitted by the sisters. The result was a sea change in the congregation's self-understanding as a community of vowed Dominican women. Reflection on the Dominican charism revealed its enduring character as missionary, while some of the forms and practices that had crept in over time needed change. Called to renewal, the Adrian Dominican sisters began to examine all facets of their religious life, their Dominican heritage, their roots in a cloistered Dominican monastery in Regensburg, Germany, their singular commitment to education and healthcare in the United States, their emerging understanding of mission, their identity as women in the Order, the Church, and the world, their theology of religious life, their mode of governance, the spirituality that had informed their lives. Everything opened up and revealed levels of disquiet below the surface of the sisters' lives. Attention turned to the individual sister, her talent and qualifications for ministries.
Times of painful letting go ensue, loss of homely customs dearly held, of ease and familiar ways of praying, living, and serving the Church.
While the ministries of the Adrian Dominican sisters had focused upon education and to a lesser extent on healthcare, a return to the original inspiration of the Order led them to see that these important ministries flowed from a more universal commitment to mission. Mission encompasses more than a single ministry. It is broader in scope and includes ministries, formation of community, and preaching unique to Dominicans. A line from the Vatican II document on the Church in the modern world was the most influential for mission. The joys and hopes, the grief and anguish of the people of our time, especially of those who are poor and afflicted, are the joys and hopes, the grief and anguish of the followers of Christ as well. The experience of the sisters at home in the United States and overseas had given them first-hand knowledge of situations in the world that called for response, particularly for the poor in inner cities, developing countries, and economically and politically oppressed peoples. Various initiatives were undertaken by the congregation, and individual sisters were facilitated in using their particular talents in needed ministries.
Turning in humility and faith to seeking truth about themselves, their lives and ministry through modern methods of research, the sisters grew in wholesome confidence, fearless in risking for the kingdom's sake.
The sisters came to realize that mission was not their unique vocation. Others shared it. As a result, one of the decisions of the Renewal Chapter of 1968 was the authorization of an associate program. This program has expanded and matured. In 1978, the congregation adopted a mission statement that united the concepts of mission and identity.
In the mission of Jesus,
We Adrian Dominican sisters
Discover and identify ourselves
as women called together
to share faith and life
with one another.
and sent into our world
to be with others,
bearers and recipients of his love,
co-creators of his justice and peace.
This statement emphasized that the Adrian Dominican Sisters are women engaged in mission, that their ministry is carried out in their world, and that they cooperate with others in their ministries, that efforts in ministry were directed to justice and peace, aspects of God's love.
Then come exciting years of branching out, the setting free of talents, hidden gifts, the calling forth of long-held hopes and dreams, with visions of a future, vague in human eyes, but clear in God's.
Just as the Vatican II documents identified the Church as the people of God, so the congregation identified itself as the communion of its members. This perception led to an examination of authority structures and to the conviction that evangelical authority resides in the total community. Once again, turning to the inspiration of St. Dominic, the sisters began to examine governance. For Dominic, law and governance were freeing for the members of the order. To accomplish more freedom for mission, the sisters put in place a series of groups linking those at local levels to intermediate levels and to the leadership of the congregation. The arrangement allowed for initiatives in mission to begin with the sisters at local levels and in that way to respond to the needs that they experienced. The congregation's reflection on the prescribed forms of prayer turned attention to the motto of the order, to contemplate and to give to others the fruits of contemplation. Free to pray in ways that most suited them, the sisters adopted forms of scripturally based prayer and emerging new spiritualities. Substitutes for the little office of the Blessed Virgin, long chanted daily without variance, were sought. Initially, abbreviated English forms of the breviary were adopted for communal use, but something was still missing, particularly prayer forms free from patriarchal language. Sisters began to seek spiritual direction in order to deepen their relationships with God, and some members of the congregation were trained in spiritual direction to meet the increasing need. Many found inspiration in feminist, ecological, liberation, ethnic, and other spiritualities that related to their experience. Writers on spirituality, particularly women, were avidly read. A project undertaken with other Dominican women's congregations resulted in the publication of Dominican Praise, a new edition of Common Prayer produced by Dominican women scholars that features inclusive language and is widely used. It is a source of unity in prayer and provides the dimension of common prayer in the tradition of the order. It offers the opportunity for common choral prayer as an option along with private prayer. On the Adrian campus, it is used for daily prayer by the community. In light of the times, a weekly prayer for peace open to the public was begun and continues. Another instance of intercongregational cooperation with other Dominican sisters is the collaborative Dominican novitiate for the formation of new members. Over the years of renewal, a new constitution and statutes for the congregation was written. It encompassed all of the insights that had developed in this important phase of the congregation's journey of transformation. For the first time, it represented a true foundation for the Apostolic Dominican Women of Adrian. It received approval from Rome on April 29, 1989. The sisters responded to their newfound freedom for mission within the parameters set by their general chapters.
A holy, aching restlessness impels their ready hearts to journey everywhere and anywhere to tell good news.
Since Vatican Council II in the 1960s, the congregation's ministries have expanded in a variety of ways, with a primary focus on the poor and disenfranchised. Education continues to be a priority through sponsorship of 2 universities, Siena Heights in Adrian and Berry in Miami, Florida, a high school, Regina Dominican in Wilmette, Illinois, and elementary schools, St. Joseph Academy in Adrian and Rosarian Academy in West Palm Beach, Florida. Some sisters minister in diocesan offices and parish schools. They are engaged in parish administration, pastoral ministry, RCIA instruction, bereavement ministry, social service outreach for the poor in parishes in rural and urban areas. A new focus in literacy education has resulted in centers opened in Detroit, Chicago, West Palm Beach, Flint, and Adrian. The expansion of this ministry has been made possible through the financial support of the Sister Mary Richard Ray Foundation. Healthcare was furthered through the joining of the congregation's 2 hospitals with others to form Catholic Healthcare West. The ministry in Henderson, Nevada, flourished, requiring 2 new facilities, St. Catherine and St. Martin de Porres, in addition to St. Rose of Lima. Sisters trained as medical personnel, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, physical therapists, and others. The healthcare facilities in Adrian were expanded to meet the growing need. The Dominican Life Center was put in place as a continuum of care for the aging sisters. The Regina building was renovated for assisted living. Sisters with law degrees have assisted undocumented farm workers, other immigrants, and asylum seekers in different parts of the country. They have set up and supported shelters for women and children, as well as addressed the needs of the elderly poor in several areas of the country. Ministry overseas was undertaken over the years. In Malawi, sisters taught in a local seminary. In Kenya, sisters went to the Assumption Sisters of Nairobi and the Assumption Sisters of Eldoret to assist with formation. Some went to South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Swaziland for educational assistance in schools, AIDS education, and programs for adult education in catechesis, spirituality, and liturgy. The ministry of the sisters in the Dominican Republic, begun in the 1940s, has undergone radical transformation. From its early concentration on education for the affluent to community organization and direct assistance to the poor. Working with and empowering the people of El Cruce, Bani, and cooperating with other agencies, the need for health care in the region has been addressed. In addition, a school, Fe y Alegria, has grown to over 1,500 students. It is now considered a model school in the international system of such schools. The need for church leadership and ministry in Alaska and Canada was identified, and sisters went to these areas: Anchorage and Juneau in Alaska, British Columbia, and Manitoba in Canada. With a new consciousness of social responsibility, the congregation established the Portfolio Advisory Board to monitor investments through a social screen. Into the hands of this congregational board, a fund for alternative investments was authorized. It provides low-interest loans to community-based enterprises that demonstrate a commitment to social justice through alternative economic endeavors. Among the surprises of the Spirit in the congregation's ongoing journey of life was an overture from the Dominican Sisters of Edmonds, Washington. Beginning in the 1980s, dialogues began about possible merger of the 2 congregations who had roots in a common history stemming from New York.
Dominican women sharing roots in early history, traveling in faith as companions toward a transforming new Pentecost, exploring the future together as proclaimers of the prophetic word.
Conversations continued between the 2 groups through the 3 administrations. Sharing the same inspiration bequeathed to them by St. Dominic, they were united in a ministerial vision. The possibility of merger gained momentum in the late 1990s when a joint task force was appointed to move the process forward. In 2003, the Sisters of Edmonds voted in their general chapter to merge with the Adrian Dominicans. The merger was approved by Rome, and a celebration of the new identity of the Adrian Dominican congregation took place in Edmonds, Washington, and later in Adrian, Michigan. As part of its international outreach, the congregation retains close ties with the Dominican Sisters of Our Lady of Remedies in the Philippines and the Assumption Sisters of the two congregations in Kenya. Iraqi Dominican sisters have been offered hospitality and support in Adrian during difficult times for Christians in their country. With the generosity of friends of the congregation, funds were collected to obtain housing and ministry for the Iraqi Dominican sisters living in Italy. The congregation has established ties with the Dominican Sisters of Notre Dame de Grace in Norway for affiliation in ministry. For all of these endeavors, the congregation has established an Office of Development to seek support for its ministry trust. Another trust, the Camilla Madden Trust, supports the retirement and health care needs of the sisters themselves. The congregation continues to look to the future in order to seek truth, make peace, and reverence life. Our times call for us to look at the soul-sized challenges facing our world and our congregation as a member of the larger Dominican order. In the spirit of Dominic, Catherine, and our Adrian foremothers, we enter into the great turning of our era with the same foundational supports and graces that nurtured and sustained our ancestors. Trust in the providential Spirit who is always present with us and inspires us. Commitment to the mission of Jesus and promotion of gospel values. Faithful to our Dominican charism of giving to others the fruit of our contemplation and the foundational principles of study, contemplative prayer, community, and our mission of preaching. Reading the signs of the times globally to discern what is demanded of us.
Still we go, we travel constantly,
for our life is a journey, and this world a place of pilgrimage.